Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the cool, mist-soaked mountains of northern Vietnam, where the fog hangs like silk, and the crickets sound like they're whispering secrets. You're standing on a narrow dirt path, boots sinking just a little into the soft red earth, and ahead of you, bamboo forests sway like tall, ancient librarians keeping watch over something very old and very odd. You pass a ridge where the mist parts just enough to see a strange sight. Bamboo tubes lashed together with vines stretch along the slope like veins on the body of the hill. They twist and climb connecting terraces and paddies in a gentle zigzag. The weird part. The water's moving uphill. Yeah, that's the first clue this night isn't going to go the way you expected. You probably won't survive this. At least not without questioning everything you thought you knew about how water works. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You take a breath. Cool, fragrant, laced with distant wood smoke, and step forward. The landscape is as old as memory, dotted with rice paddies, thatch-roofed houses, and the occasional buffalo too lazy to care you're here. Your guide, a man who somehow has both a youthful grin and a 1,000-year stare, gestures silently toward a hollow bamboo pole jutting from the earth. It hums faintly. You kneel. The sound is real gentle rhythmic like water whispering a lullaby through a reed flute. You touch it. It's damp, warm even. There's water inside flowing. Against the slope. That can't be right. You follow its path with your eyes and realize the pipeline doesn't run down to the river, it climbs away from it gently but undeniably up. There's no modern pump, no electricity, just vines gravity and something you don't understand yet. The locals don't seem confused. To them, these bamboo veins are normal, old, trusted. A few even insist the pipes have been there since their great-grandparents were young, or older. One old woman leans in and says the hill was thirsty once, but now it drinks on its own. You blink confused. She smiles a toothless smile and walks away. Historians still argue whether these systems date back 2 centuries 5, or even to the time of the Yongsan culture, which thrived in the region over 2,000 years ago. What's clear is that none of this is modern. No metal joints, no concrete anchors, just bamboo earth and know-how. You follow the hum along a paddy path and spot a junction where 3 bamboo tubes meet at a hollowed node, like a bizarre wooden T-joint. The water splits evenly, guided by tiny tilts and angle and the tiniest of shims pebbles, slivers of bark bits of old pottery. It's shockingly precise. The mainstream historical fact here is that Vietnam has long been a civilization of water mastery. Wet rice agriculture, especially in the Red River Delta, relied on complex systems of dikes, weirs, and sluices, but those were large-scale imperial projects. What you're seeing now is different. This is grassroots engineering, literally. The fringe tidbit. Some locals believe the bamboo itself chooses where to send the water. That if the farmer listens closely enough while harvesting the poles, the plant will tell him where it wants to lie. You can't help but imagine a man kneeling in the forest, listening to rustling leaves nodding and cutting, only when the bamboo agrees. You hike further, your boots brushing wildflowers and soft green moss. The bamboo pipeline snakes higher, and now you realize it's not just one pipe. It's dozens, interwoven, interdependent. Each segment is a single bamboo column hollowed and connected at the node. Some slope slightly down, others seem perfectly level. A few even appear to slope up, and yet water still passes through them. Maybe it's a trick. Maybe the system is using an ancient understanding of atmospheric pressure and siphoning. Or maybe you're just tired and gravity is being weird. The science teacher in your head starts raising a hand. Wait, that's not how siphons work, but you hush it. You're here to observe, not explain. Not yet. As night deepens, the fog thickens and the world shrinks to a circle of bamboo dirt and flowing water. You touch another pipe. Still warm, still humming. You sit, you listen, And somewhere far below the earth or far above the trees, you feel it again. This isn't just plumbing. This is something more. Maybe a technology wrapped in ritual. Maybe a secret code only the land and the people understand. Or maybe it's a heartbeat. You lean back against a tree, heartbeat to heartbeat, and let the mountain whisper to you. You wake, though, you're not sure you were sleeping. The fog has shifted. Morning light pale and yellow like weak tea filters through the bamboo. You stretch bones, clicking softly like old floorboards, and follow the pipeline again, this time downhill. The hum is quieter now, but it's still there like a lullaby you can't quite shake. You come to a village, wooden homes, on stilts, chickens underfoot, laundry strung like flags from house to house. And everywhere the same bamboo pipes looping through the community like serpents. Some disappear underground, others skim just above your head, dribbling water into clay basins and stone troughs. Children chase each other barefoot, hopping over exposed segments of pipeline as if they're just part of the landscape. An old man squats beside a junction and taps it twice with a small stone. Water shifts direction. A basin begins to fill a few meters away. Magic, you ask? No, he says. Old habit. You stare. There's no valve, no lever, just a precise thump at the right note and the water obeys. You don't even try to understand it yet. This village hums not metaphorically but physically. The pipes carry water with such subtle motion that the vibrations ripple into the ground. Walk barefoot and you'll feel it, a faint, consistent pulse. Not strong, but present. Like the earth has swallowed a tuning fork. Historians still argue whether these systems were communal creations or the work of designated pipeline families, a sort of water artisan caste whose skills were passed down through generations. Some oral histories suggest that children were trained from early on to hear leaks and sense water flow by touch. Others say no one taught, it was just known. Like how you don't need to be taught how to breathe. Mainstream historians acknowledge that traditional Vietnamese irrigation, especially in the mountainous north, was far more sophisticated than once believed. Terraces weren't just sculpted fields, they were engineered ecosystems, each relying on precise control of slope flow and timing. But what surprises even modern hydrologists is how these communities built stable leak-resistant pipelines from nothing but natural materials and kept them running for decades. You crouch beside a long run of pipe, maybe 15 meters, resting on a series of cradles made from forked branches and stone. The pipe hums faintly. You place your palm on the surface. It's warm again. Why is it always warm? The quirky part. Some villagers believe the bamboo remembers where it came from. If you try to lay a segment from a western grove facing east, they say the water will refuse to flow. Wrong direction, a toothless uncle laughs, like trying to row a boat upside down. He's not kidding. There's a quiet belief here that water has moods and that bamboo must be aligned with its original growing angle root end, downstream tip end up, or it won't cooperate. You try not to laugh, then you remember the water going uphill last night and your smile fades. The hum gets louder as you near a small communal bathhouse, just a bamboo-walled shelter with stone steps leading down into a pool. Warm steam curls from the surface. Yep, hot water. A thermal spring feeds this system, and the bamboo channels carry it still warm across a full hillside. Some of the steam gets trapped inside, keeping the pipes at that strange body-like temperature. You ask if anyone ever burns themselves. Only outsiders, they say. You spot a junction where two hot streams meet and swirl. The joint is sealed not with modern glue or rubber, but with a fat plug of beeswax tree resin and clay. You want to poke it. You absolutely shouldn't. There's a woman with a baby in a wrap. She walks up to a pipe, opens a spout made from curled banana leaf, and washes her hands. The water slows. She taps the pipe twice. It stops. You want to scream. Everything here, every tap, trickle, and hum, runs like an invisible song, each note timed and tuned, and nobody writes it down. This is the part that would drive any engineer absolutely bananas. There are no blueprints, no schematics, no measurements in centimeters or PSI, just instinct practice and the ever-changing rhythm of the land. One man laughs when you ask if they keep records. We remember with our feet, he says. You walk around the village noticing tiny details, now bamboo pipes that dip and rise ever so slightly to maintain pressure. Little vine-wrapped elbows that redirect flow between homes. A whole network of water distribution without a single metal part. No rust, no industrial tools. Just patience maintenance and the occasional offering left at a junction flowers rice or a lit incense stick. You ask about maintenance. They say it's mostly listening. When the pipes stop humming right, they know something's wrong. It's never loud. Just off-key. Like a singer drifting a half note. Most of the villagers can hear it instantly. You remember back to a time when you fixed a leak in your apartment using duct tape and cursing? Here, a teenager with a bamboo sliver and some tree sap could probably out-repair a certified plumber. You start to realize something else. This isn't just about water. These pipelines are how the village talks to itself. They're stitched into every corner of daily life. Baths, cooking rice fields, drinking water. When someone tamps a node or diverts a stream, others know. The system communicates. It breathes. You're not looking at plumbing, you're looking at a community's nervous system. As the light fades again, you follow a final pipe out of the village and into the woods. You don't know where it's going, you just know it's humming and you're not ready to stop listening yet. The pipe you're following disappears into the undergrowth, thick ferns and banana leaves brushing your arms like curious fingers. Somewhere ahead, water trickles and chuckles like it knows something you don't. You press on, ducking beneath low bamboo arches until you emerge onto a narrow ridge path. The pipeline is still there, stretching ahead, climbing. And yes, climbing uphill. Now you're done humoring it. You stop, plant your feet, and squint. You're not imagining things. The bamboo pipe runs at a visible incline, maybe 10 degrees, and yet the water inside is flowing in that very direction. Up. There's no pump, no bubbling turbine, no magic crystal humming under a nearby rock. You drop to your knees. Put your ear to the bamboo. The hum is still there. Softer now. Focused, like someone's gently dragging their finger along the inside of a wine glass. Here's where your brain starts to squirm. You remember siphoning gas as a teen, don't lie, and how the tube only worked if the receiving end was lower than the source. Gravity. Simple. But this isn't a closed siphon. There's no dramatic arc, no descending pipe that explains the rise. Mainstream historical consensus says ancient Vietnamese communities often use sophisticated terrace irrigation, employing basic gravity-fed systems to move water between levels. That makes sense. That's how the Red River Delta operates, slowly bleeding moisture downhill through carefully angled canals and bunds. But this isn't that. You trace the source uphill to a bamboo tank, really just a massive lidded culm, jammed vertically into the earth, acting like a reservoir. Rainwater collects in it, possibly filled by a higher spring, or maybe even manually. The pipe connects low on the tank, allowing only the bottom water to feed out. But still, the climb is too steep for gravity alone to explain. You roll a pebble along the pipe's length. It clearly goes up. Some researchers suggest that hidden siphoning effects might be in play here. If the pipe loops down first and creates enough suction, it could technically push water over a short rise. But here's the kicker. There's no visible downward segment. This pipeline begins level, then rises. Some call it a ghost siphon, others rural nonsense. Historians still argue whether these uphill flows are illusions of terrain where what seems like a climb is actually a slow descent when measured properly, or whether these people knew tricks we've lost. Gradient mapping. Pressure cycling. Gravity-defying bamboo cult. Take your pick. You test it yourself. Crack open the pipe with a small twig. Water spurts upward arcs briefly, then falls to the dirt. The pressure is real. You seal the joint with a strip of palm bark. It sticks like it was born to do so. A fringe theory, admittedly from a man with a beard that might qualify for its own zip code, proposes that certain Vietnamese builders use the Earth's own heartbeat. Slow geologic pulses that squeeze groundwater upward over time. Like acupuncture, he claims stroking his beard ominously. But for the mountain, sure, buddy. You climb further where the pipe vanishes again into a trench. Curious, you dig gently with your fingers. There it is, embedded just beneath the soil, hugged tightly by clay. The pipe runs warm again, and when you lift a segment, a trickle escapes and races downhill. That's when you realize something crucial. The pipe isn't just on the land, it's of it. Each segment has been laid in such intimate harmony with the terrain, every twist responding to a slope, every dip echoing a valley. You begin to suspect the builders walked this hill barefoot hundreds of times before placing a single pipe. You begin to walk differently too, slower, listening with your souls. You feel where the ground clenches slightly where it softens, and suddenly the climb doesn't seem so steep. Could it be that the terrain looks uphill, but in some secret, subtle way it isn't? Maybe. Or maybe they're cheating with hidden storage tanks. You find a gourd-shaped basin dug into a slope covered with broad leaves. Rain collects there. Water seeps into the pipes, not in a rush, but in a breath. A slow, steady inhale. One you wouldn't even notice unless you were looking for it. Still, it's not enough to fully explain it. You sit beside one of the pipes and press your forehead to it. It's pulsing slightly tiny thuds like a slow heartbeat. Could it be? Wait, is this thing timed? Yes. You watch the water flow increase slightly every few minutes. Not constant pressure. Rhythmic. Like a heartbeat or a breath. Maybe the builders weren't using brute force to move water uphill. They were using pulses. Tiny repeated compressions triggered by temperature changes, solar heating even the flex of the bamboo itself as it expands and contracts. It's not a rush, it's a rhythm. That's when it clicks. This system doesn't fight gravity, it dances with it. You look down the hill where the bamboo veins snake away into the trees, and suddenly it's like watching a quiet symphony. Every section hums its part, every node keeping tempo, and you're just starting to learn the beat. You lie back in the grass, eyes closed, heartbeat syncing with the earth, and even if you still don't understand how the water climbs uphill, you're not sure it matters anymore. Somewhere between dream and waking, you hear it again, the hum of the pipes. But now it's layered. Not just water moving through bamboo, but something deeper. You rise slowly, aching slightly from the night on damp grass, and gaze out across the valley. Terraces stretch in clean green curves below you, like a topographical map hand-drawn by a perfectionist. They shimmer faintly with morning dew, glowing gold where the sun breaks through. It's all so precise, so controlled, yet utterly organic. You start down the path trailing the bamboo pipeline as it zigzags between the terraces, and that's when it hits you. These aren't just fields, they're machines. Massive living machines. Historians agree Vietnam's ancient terrace agriculture is one of Southeast Asia's great hydraulic marvels. The way rice fields were carved into the mountains, not randomly, but in rhythmic tiered layers, wasn't just about maximizing arable land. It was about controlling water, directing it, timing it, acting, and the Lac Viet people. Yeah, they were the masters. These weren't some humble rice growers living off rain and good luck. They built sophisticated waterworks into their hillsides long before the Han Dynasty showed up and started labeling everyone barbarians. Modern archaeologists keep finding clues, stone weirs, ceramic flow guides, and of course the ever-present bamboo tubes that suggest an ancient knowledge of hydraulic engineering, so advanced it would make Roman aqueduct builders raise an eyebrow. You crouch at the edge of a terrace. It's quiet here, save for the soft drip of water slipping down from the level above. The bamboo pipes you've been following feed into this tier controlling the when and how much. No overflowing, no stagnant puddles. Just the perfect sheen of standing water that rice loves. Every field, it turns out, is a little clock. Water is released in precise intervals, flooding one terrace, just enough before being drained into the next. It's like dominoes, but wetter. And it works because the bamboo pipes aren't just conduits, they're regulators. Each node can be pinched, twisted, or even blocked with a palm-sized stopper made of carved wood or packed clay. The quirky bit some farmers use live frogs as leak detectors. If the frog jumped out, everything was fine. If it stayed still, too cold. If it croaked like a banshee, something was wrong. No, really. One old man tells you dead serious a pipe that makes frogs nervous needs patching. Then he walks away like that wasn't the weirdest sentence you've heard this week. As you walk further, you realize each family along the terraces has their own segment of the system. Maintained, adjusted, and honored like a family heirloom. But here's the twist. It only works when everyone cooperates. That's the genius of it. These pipelines aren't just engineering, they're social contracts. If one farmer takes too much water or blocks a flow, the whole chain breaks. Downhill neighbors suffer, tensions rise, rice wilts. And so over generations, the community developed rituals, literal water-sharing ceremonies, to allocate usage fairly. Bamboo slips marked with family crests were exchanged like tokens. This week this flow, next week that one. Historians still argue whether these ceremonies were purely practical or held deeper spiritual meaning. Some say it was simple management. Others believe the water itself was considered a deity flowing only when pleased. Either way, the result was the same balance. You stop at a fork in the pipeline. One branch feeds a narrow terrace choked with young green rice. The other feeds a cluster of watercress plots owned by a different family. Both flows pulse softly. You sit between them, watching, waiting. Neither one is stronger, neither gets more. It's a silent negotiation, a truce enforced not by words but by humming bamboo. It's beautiful and fragile. You begin to wonder how much modern life has forgotten this kind of cooperation. How many cities today could share a water source without argument, without paperwork, litigation, and meters? The people here didn't measure flow in gallons, they measured it in trust. You pass a carved stone marker worn smooth with time and a little cup of rice beside it. An offering. This, your guide whispers, is the guardian of the terrace chain. She watches the water. If you lie, your fields will know. Okay, so maybe that's superstition, but then again, your last houseplant did die after you made fun of it. So who knows? The integration of belief and engineering is everywhere here. Offerings placed beside particularly wise junctions. Pipes adorned with bits of red thread or coins pressed into the bark. Every part of the system seems to carry not just water, but intention. And suddenly you realize you haven't seen a single water tower. Not one. The entire region manages itself with no centralized authority. Just a quiet, humming agreement. Like a jazz band with no conductor. You pause to rest on a flat stone, the pipe murmuring beside you. The air smells of wet earth and herbs. You watch a woman farther down the slope, tilt her head, listen, and then lightly tap her pipe with a bamboo stick. A valve opens. Water begins to flow. She nods to herself and walks away. It's all so fluid, so alive. You lean back and close your eyes. Let the hum of the pipe settle into your bones. And as sleep flirts with you again, you realize something. These bamboo systems aren't just infrastructure. They're proof that long before the age of apps and satellites, humans could build something elegant, precise, and profoundly human just by listening to water. You wake to birdsong, sharp, melodic, and insistent. A white heron lifts off from a nearby paddy in slow, heavy flaps, the tips of its wings skimming the morning mist. The terraces below glisten with early dew, and for a moment, everything feels suspended in time. But the hum is different now, fainter, interrupted. You follow the sound, stepping over irrigation ridges and ducking beneath a sun-bleached banner made from fraying cloth. Ahead, a group of villagers, men, women, even a couple of barefoot kids are gathered around a bamboo pipe that's been snapped clean in two. The break looks sharp, almost surgical, and the water. It's gushing out in a chaotic arc, flooding the trail and soaking ankles. One of the elders mutters something. A boy is sent sprinting back toward the houses. You crouch eyes scanning the area. No storm, no animal damage. It looks like sabotage. Pipe war, someone says quietly and gives you a long, tired look. Here's something you didn't expect in ancient Vietnam. Water wasn't just a resource, it was power. Entire hill tribes like the Tay the Mong and the Black Hmong lived in delicate balance with each other. But when water was scarce, or when one group tried to expand their terraces into new territory, things got tense. And by tense we mean bamboo knives at dawn tense. Mainstream records show that in the 14th century, water disputes between upland villages were frequent enough that local lords had to mediate them personally. Some tribes would reroute spring sources or secretly cut through pipelines in the dead of night, crippling a rival's rice crop for weeks. These weren't random acts, these were tactics. The quirky tidbit. There are still lullabies sung in certain mountain communities that talk about stealing the stream, like it's a bedtime adventure. Imagine a mother singing about siphoning water from your neighbor while gently patting her toddler to sleep. Sweet dreams, kiddo. You move closer as the villagers assess the damage. A woman pulls out a length of fresh bamboo, already pre-cut, and begins carving the joints with a knife so old it's more rust than metal. Within minutes, they've begun replacing the broken segment. The flow is slowed with banana fiber stoppers. Clay is packed around the ends like mortar. No shouting, no drama, just motion. They've clearly done this before. Historians still argue whether these conflicts were spontaneous or ritualized. Some accounts suggest that pipe wars followed a code of honor. No violence, just sabotage. Like a chess match played with plumbing. Others describe outright brawls complete with raiding parties, fire arrows, and seized cattle. What's undeniable is that the control of water meant everything. Terraces without water dried out in days. A single block channel could ruin a family's entire season. So each pipe was guarded not with locks, but with community. Everyone watched the flow. Everyone listened. That's why some pipes are hidden, buried beneath the soil, woven under roots, even tucked behind false walls of stone and moss. You spot one like that now, a bamboo length, almost invisible beneath an overhang, marked with nothing but a dangling red thread. A signal? Or maybe a ward? Your guide, a wiry man named Tuan, tells you stories from his grandfather who once spent 3 full days tracking a water thief. Not by sight, but by sound. He followed the missing hum. When he found the culprit's hidden diversion channel, he didn't confront them. He waited until they were asleep and reversed the flow. The crops shriveled and the thief apologized with a roasted chicken. Fair exchange, apparently. You keep walking now with a different awareness. Every pipe might be a line of trust or a line of battle. Some of them even bear the scars cuts, hastily patched joints bound with resin-darkened twine or burned ends where fire had been used to weaken the bamboo. You come to a communal junction, a true hub where several lines meet. It's part shrine, part plumbing fixture. A stone slab rests beside it, covered in tiny carved grooves like tally marks. Offerings sit nearby an egg, a worn coin, a tiny gourd filled with rice wine. This is more than plumbing. This is diplomacy. In the past, elders from neighboring villages would meet at places like this to hash out water rights, especially before the planting season. No written contracts, just pipe placement shared meals and the occasional passive-aggressive dance performance. Yes, that was a thing some groups settled disputes by staging ritual dances in which characters symbolized the flowing and blocking of water. If you think interpretive irrigation theater sounds dry, you haven't seen 2 septuagenarians mime a drought with face paint and buffalo bells. Today, most of those traditions have faded, but the bones remain. You feel them in every twist of bamboo, every carved notch or sealed joint. These aren't just utility lines, they're historical records, legal agreements, and family stories bundled into plant form. As you return to the trail, you spot a faded symbol painted on one pipe in red and black. It's a stylized dragon. Your guide explains that one belonged to a family who claimed their ancestor tamed a water spirit. The dragon kept the flow steady, and if it didn't, they blamed the neighboring village. Obviously. Of course. The sun is beginning to tilt now, and the terraces glow gold. Below, the villagers finish the repair, the pipe is sealed, water resumes its quiet path, and the hum returns. Balanced, restored. For now. But you glance at the symbol again. That dragon looks like it's watching you. You follow the restored pipeline downhill again. Its hum now steady, almost smug, like a song that survived a glitch in the chorus. It snakes through another clutch of rice terraces, but this time the fields are narrower, more intricate, carved into steeper slopes. Here the paddies look like puzzle pieces, each one nestled into the next with the precision of a jigsaw master. You step into the mud, ankle deep, warm, and strangely soothing. The paddy water curls around your foot like it's welcoming you. And just beneath the surface, you spotted another bamboo tube half buried, peeking out like a submerged flute. This is where the magic really happens. See the visible pipelines, the ones you've been following across ridges and through villages, are just the top layer. Beneath the paddies lies a whole second world of bamboo plumbing. Some of it's horizontal, feeding each level. Some of it's vertical, like straws punched into the clay. These vertical tubes breathe balancing air and pressure, guiding drainage, and keeping the soil just soggy enough for the rice to thrive. You kneel beside one. It's capped with a thin disc of wood pockmarked from use. You flick it off. A soft glub escapes air being pulled into the shaft as water settles below. Historians still argue whether this below-ground network was improvised over time or planned from the start. Some say it grew like roots added where needed responsive. Others argue that the original builders mapped the entire hydrological layout before carving the first patty. There's no agreement, only awe. The mainstream historical fact: rice cultivation in Vietnam has always required intricate water control. Unlike dry cereals, rice demands standing water for much of its life cycle. Ancient Vietnamese farmers didn't just redirect streams, they terraformed entire hillsides to hold that water like cupped hands. And bamboo, abundant and obedient, became their most trusted tool. The fringe detail. Some families believe each paddy has its own thirst that one field might drink faster than another, even if they're the same size. The reason's spirits, of course. Some plots have old bones, a farmer tells you. Others don't like morning light. You learn which is which. You glance down at the paddy you're standing in. It's quiet. Almost too quiet. You back out slowly. Further ahead, a family is working the fields grandmother planting. Teenager leveling with a foot-paddle toddler, smacking the mud with a stick for no apparent reason. They pause to wave. You notice something odd about the way the water moves between their terraces. It doesn't rush, it drips. At the corner of each field is a thin, curved bamboo spout, angled precisely placed just so. Water trickles out in a controlled whisper, not a gushing pour. It takes several minutes to fully move from one terrace to the next. You crouch beside one and peer into the joint. Inside is a wad of fibrous moss wrapped with spider silk. And wait, is that a bird feather? It is. This isn't just plumbing, it's customized. Someone carefully engineered this joint for slow, steady output. It's irrigation, but artisan. The kid with the stick grins at you. That one's mine, he says proudly. He's 5. You realize this knowledge how to shape flow, how to hear a leak, how to make a pipe sing isn't taught in classrooms. It's absorbed. Inhaled by barefoot trial and error. A toddler's hands know what a bamboo joint should feel like. A teenager can tell if a pipe's been twisted too tight just by the pitch of the water. And this isn't isolated. Every family has its own bamboo setup. No two are identical. Some are more elaborate with spirals and curves. Others are simple and direct. But all function beautifully tuned like instruments. That's the word that keeps coming back, tuned. This entire landscape hums like a living thing. When the sun's high and the water's warm and the frogs begin their chorus, it's not just noise, it's a composition. And every pipe is an instrument in that orchestra. There's a moment when the wind dies and the sun hits the water, just right where you swear you can hear the terraces breathing. The woman planting rice gestures for you to look up the slope. At first you see nothing, then faint shimmer. A series of bamboo tubes strung in a zigzag like a necklace across the hillside. Between them hang dried gourds that tap lightly against the pipe when the wind stirs them. It's a low percussive rhythm, not random, intentional. It tells us when the water is coming, she says. So we don't have to check. You stare dumbfounded. The system tells you when it needs you. And then you laugh. Of course it does. This is a civilization that made irrigation not just a necessity, but a language. A conversation between Water Earth and people. Before you leave the field, the grandmother calls you over. She's carving a new joint with a blade shaped like a fishhook. Her hands are calloused but graceful, and she works by feel alone. The cut is shallow, then deep, then shallow again. When it's done, the bamboo makes a soft plink when tapped. Perfect pitch, she says. You want to ask her to explain, but then you don't. Some things are better left as music. As you walk back toward the forest edge, the rice paddies behind you start to shimmer again in the low sun. Pipes gurgle. Frogs answer. A heron calls once, then vanishes into the mist. And beneath your feet, somewhere in the mud, 100 bamboo flutes are still playing. By now, the bamboo feels like an old friend. You've walked beside it, crouched over it, pressed your ear to its warm skin. It's led you across terraces, through mud over ridges, and now it's climbing sideways. Not uphill, not downhill, just sideways. You squint at the path ahead. The pipe hugs a ridge veering away from the main valley and curving along the mountainside in a lazy spiral. The landscape tilts, but the pipe keeps level. Or close to it. It's so subtle you almost don't notice at first. But then it hits you. This pipe isn't following gravity. It's bending it. You follow the spiral boots crunching over dry grass and loose pebbles. Below you, the mountain drops sharply into a green cauldron of ferns and shadow. Above, cliffs stretch up into jagged clouds, and between them this bamboo pipeline slicing sideways like a horizon line drawn by hand. Historians still argue whether these sideways channels were the result of trial and error or deliberate design. How do you even map a consistent gradient across a concave slope with no theodolites, no GPS, no laser levels? The terrain rolls unpredictably here, spurs and gullies, dips and humps. One wrong angle and the water stops flowing, or floods, or vanishes into the ground forever. But the pipeline holds, the water flows. You crouch beside a section where it passes over a shallow ravine propped up on a bridge of vines and forked branches. The joints here are sealed with hardened pitch and clay, nothing new. But there's something else, small stone weights hanging from the pipe at intervals. Each one a different size tied with worn twine. Counterweights. Your guide appears beside you nodding. Keeps the pipe from lifting, he says. Too much flow, it floats. You blink, of course. A full bamboo pipe isn't light, it's a buoyant log. If it's not anchored, the pressure of its own water can lift it clean off the cradle. And these weights, they aren't evenly spaced, they're tuned. The heavier ones hold down the uphill bends. The lighter ones let the pipe flex where the terrain shifts. It's not just structure, it's choreography. Mainstream archaeological finds from northern Vietnam do include remnants of wooden and bamboo aqueducts stretching across difficult terrain, often stabilized with stone cribs and suspended over depressions. But those reconstructions, they're straight, rigid, functional. This what you're seeing now is fluid, responsive. It breathes. The quirky fringe theory. Some local builders reportedly use their own saliva to test slope. No joke. They'd spit on a stick, lay it in the pipe trench, and watch which way the droplet rolled. Too fast, they'd say. Make the slope gentler. Too slow, steepen it. Crude, maybe. But incredibly precise, especially when you don't have digital levels lying around. You walk on. The pipe continues to bend around the hill like it's tracing a secret contour no map ever noticed. Occasionally it dips, then rises again, always gentle, never sharp. You realize something. It's maintaining equilibrium. This pipe isn't chasing the easiest route, it's following the right one. You come to a spot where the pipe passes through a cleft in the rock. Here the bamboo has been split and rejoined, the segments narrowed to push water faster through a tighter space. Like a bottleneck. Pressure build, your guide explains. Speeds it up, keeps it clean. You peer inside and feel the water rushing a thin, steady current, now humming in a slightly higher tone. When it exits the cleft, the pipe widens again, and the tone drops back to its normal register. It's like the pipe exhales. You sit down back against a rock, still warm from the sun, and think about what you've seen. This system doesn't rely on force, it relies on finesse. Everything here, the bends, the pressure dips, the elevation tweaks, has been designed with a kind of engineering poetry. No 2 meters of pipe are exactly the same. Each segment is carved, joined, weighted, and angled based on its microclimate, its slope, its surrounding vegetation. And no written plans, just generational memory. There's a section just ahead where the pipe splits briefly, forking into 2 paths, then rejoining. It's not a mistake, it's intentional. One path is longer, winding through cooler shade. The other is short, hot sunlit. You put your hand on both. Different temperatures. They're mixing water temperatures on purpose. Why? Tuan grins when you ask. Some plants like warm, some don't, so we balance it. You feel your mind melt a little. Historians rarely talk about ancient Vietnamese agriculture in terms of temperature control, but here it is, literal thermal balancing via water mixing. Not with valves or digital sensors, with paths, sun exposure, bamboo roots. It's so elegant it hurts. You press on as twilight gathers. The pipeline descends slightly, slipping back toward cultivated land. Soon you see signs of human touch again, a rake left on a rock chicken, prints in the mud, a sandal drying on a stump. And then one final marvel. The bamboo ends abruptly at a stone cistern. The water flows in clean, perfectly level. No splash, no waste. From here, 3 thinner pipes trail off in different directions, feeding homes, gardens, maybe even another series of terraces. But before the water enters the tank, it passes over a carved wooden blade. Just a sliver of wood angled precisely in the flow. What's that, you ask? A whisper, Tuan says, tells us if the water's tired. You blink. Tired. If it makes no sound, he shrugs, we know the upper springs are dry. If it chatters, everything's fine. You crouch close. Right now the blade murmurs, softly, steadily. Not tired? Not yet. The morning dew is still clinging to the leaves when you wake again, your blanket damp, your boots colder than you remembered. But the pipe is still warm, always warm. You follow it once more, now deeper into a denser forest. The canopy above is layered so thick that light filters through in moody green shafts. The bamboo here is darker, older. Even the air smells ancient, like moss pepper and smoke that hasn't been lit in decades. The pipeline hums low now, barely perceptible. It's slower here, quieter, like it's being respectful. And as you follow it, the terrain flattens, opens, revealing a clearing ringed by standing stones. At the center, a pool. Circular, still. Glassy enough to reflect your own skeptical face. The pipe ends here. Not in a valve, not in a faucet, but in a spout that curls downward into the pool like a heron's beak. It drips, steady, rhythmic, like a pulse echoing across the surface. A shrine. You've arrived at what the locals call a nuwak, me the mother source. This is where the water is born, or so the stories say. A sacred spring always flowing even in drought. Its output is small, no more than a trickle, but it never stops. For generations, villagers built their bamboo arteries outward from this one soft heartbeat. All the pipes you've seen, every hum you've felt, they all lead back to here. Mainstream archaeology acknowledges these sacred springs across Vietnam. Some have been mapped and studied, their flow rates measured with scientific instruments. Others remain undocumented, protected by communities who refuse to reveal them. Not out of secrecy, out of respect. Here's a quirky one. At some other sources it said, the water can choose its direction. If you place 2 open pipes side by side, the spring will decide which one to enter first. People used to bring bamboo tubes from far-off villages to see if their community would be blessed with a connection. You sit at the pool's edge. It's cold, but not unpleasant. Around you, the stones are carved with symbols you don't recognize, loops and eyes dots like raindrops grooves for water to follow. Some are filled with wax, others with moss. Tuan joins you again, quiet as always. Only women used to tend this place, he says. The water listens better. You ask if that's a belief or a rule. Both, he replies. You dip your fingers into the pool. The water is impossibly clear, so much so that you're not sure where the surface ends and the reflection begins. Your touch ripples through the image like breath on glass. Historians still argue whether these springs were natural features adopted into cultural life or entirely constructed. Some geologists suspect that a few were actually engineered catchments, water redirected underground and channeled to emerge in one fixed spot, giving the illusion of a miraculous source. But if this one's fake, someone went to a lot of trouble to make it feel real. A worn bowl carved from basalt sits at the edge. You pick it up tentatively and fill it with spring water. You sip. It tastes neutral, not cold, not metallic, just pure. And then because you're curious or reckless or both, you listen. Not with your ears, with your bones. And there it is again, the hum. Not in the pipe this time. In the pool. Deep and soft like the world is exhaling beneath your feet. A frequency too low to be heard, but not too low to be felt. You lie back in the grass. Above you, the canopy trembles gently. The leaves seem to shimmer in rhythm with the water's breath. The pool beside you stays still, except for the drip, drip, drip from the bamboo spout. This is the beginning of everything you've seen. The source not just of water, but of cooperation, of ritual, of rhythm. It makes sense now why entire villages would build complex irrigation networks, not for profit or scale, but just to honor the flow. Why water distribution isn't enforced by law but by respect. Why every joint in the pipeline carries not just water, but intention. The locals say this pool used to sing at night. You wonder if it still does. There's a pile of smooth pebbles beside one of the stones. Each one is etched with tiny grooves, more of that symbolic language. Some are barely bigger than a thumbnail, others the size of your palm. Offerings maybe, or records. You don't touch them. Instead, you lean close to the spout and let a drop land on your forehead. It's colder than you expect, but you smile. Because in that moment, it's not just water, it's time, memory, connection. And the bamboo pipe beside you hums softly, still receiving, still carrying, still obeying. You leave the mother source slowly retracing the bamboo's path back into the forest, but now everything feels different. Heavier, quieter, like you've seen backstage at a theater and can't unsee the ropes and pulleys. But the show goes on. The pipe hums beside you as before, gentle, steady, unbothered by your existential moment. You descend through thinner trees now where sunlight pierces the canopy in shifting gold bands, and you begin to notice something strange about the pipe's surface. It's carved. Not every segment, just here and there. Small marks at first. Scratches. But as you walk, the carvings grow more deliberate. Spirals, animals, footprints, names. You run your fingers along one, the bamboo darkened with age, the carving almost worn smooth. It looks like a fish. No, not quite. A stylized carp with a curled tail. It's paired with a wave and a tiny stick figure with its arms raised. A story, maybe. Turns out you're walking along a storyline pipe. A tradition so localized that most official histories barely mention it. But in the highlands of ancient Vietnam, where literacy was rare and bamboo was abundant, some communities used the very infrastructure that fed their fields as Gyanak scrolls. Mainstream historians note that some groups, especially the Muong and Thai peoples, had rich oral traditions and embedded their folklore directly into the tools of daily life. But these pipes, they were next level. Part functional waterline, part ceremonial record. Each carved segment told something: a birth, a flood, a marriage, a warning. And yes, a joke or two. One section near a stream crossing shows what looks suspiciously like a man slipping on mud and landing in a pig pen. You recognize slapstick when you see it. Tuan stops and taps a piece of pipe gently with his fingernail. This one says the rice goddess slept here once, he says. She left her footprint in the mud, and the frogs haven't shut up since. You're about to laugh when you realize he's dead serious. Then you realize you still believe him anyway. The carvings vary. Some are shallow etchings done with stone tools. Others are inlaid with crushed seeds, dyed fibers, or even bits of ash. The older ones are almost invisible now, faded into the bamboo's surface like ghosts. Scholars still argue whether these engravings had standardized meaning or were purely personal. Some symbols show up in distant regions: unicorn-shaped birds, twin suns, upside-down trees, while others are unique to a single pipeline never repeated. You come to a spot where the pipe splits around a tree. On one fork is a series of children's handprints, pressed into the still wet bamboo after it was steamed open and reshaped. Tiny, imperfect, full of life. Someone marked their growing season in hands-knot calendars. Farther on, a long section has been wrapped in bark. Underneath, it's rumored lies a forbidden story. You don't open it, because some stories aren't yours to read. You rest against a rock, watching a cicada drag itself up the side of a pipe. Its wings vibrate in tune with the hum beneath. It clings to a carved notch in the bamboo shaped like a crescent moon. Some pipes were buried when a family line ended, Tuan says, kneeling beside you. Not broken, just laid to rest. Like relatives. This bamboo isn't just conduit, it's archive. One old story says that during a drought, the village elders split open a ceremonial pipe to read what the ancestors had done during the last dry spell. The story carved inside, ask your neighbors. Share the burden. So they did. And the rain returned 3 days later. Coincidence, maybe. But you look at these pipes and see not just water flow, but memory flow. This entire system is a long, flexible history book. One that needs no ink, no libraries, just care. The quirky detail. There are rumors, half whispers really, that somewhere in the hills there's a cursed pipe. A bamboo segment etched so deeply with tragedy that it's said to sing off-key when water passes through it. No matter how it's repaired or placed, the flow turns erratic. Families refuse to use it even when bamboo was scarce. Tuan rolls his eyes when you ask. I used that pipe last year, he says, smirking. The only thing cursed was the frog I stepped on. Still, you avoid touching any that seem too quiet. As you move on, the carvings grow sparser, newer. These segments haven't been marked yet. They're blank pages waiting for stories. And that's when you see a small boy crouched beside one of the pipes holding a stone and chewing his lip. He's carving. Not expertly, his lines wobble, his fish looks more like a potato, but he's focused. Intent. You ask what he's drawing. A thunder god, he says. He told my grandfather where to find water. You watch him work the soft rasp of stone on bamboo, syncing with the ever-present hum. Another story being added. Another line in the long song of the hills. And suddenly it feels obvious. This bamboo doesn't just carry water. It carries voice. The hill dips again, and the bamboo pipe leans with you like it's tired too, slouching into its next curve, still humming, still carrying. You're heading toward the lowlands now, where the air thickens with warmth, and the green shifts from misty moss to dense full jungle. Even the birds seem louder here, less like flutes and more like brass horns. You wipe sweat from your brow and keep going, and then you see it, a cluster of pipes. Dozens of them converging on a single point. They arch through the forest like ribs of some ancient sleeping creature half swallowed by vines and roots. You step closer, ducking under one then another, and arrive at the hub. This isn't a terrace or a shrine or a field. It's a bamboo reservoir, a massive elevated basin made entirely of split bamboo, bound together with bark cord and sealed with clay and tree resin. It looks like a bowl built by giants. From above, the converging pipes pour into it. From below, a complex system of spouts lets out water, one thin stream at a time, each one feeding a new direction. This is ancient Vietnam's version of a roundabout. A central switchboard. A valve network without valves. Mainstream scholars classify structures like these as early communal infrastructure. One of the few examples of shared water resource management in a largely decentralized, kin-based society. They allowed water from multiple sources, springs, mountain runoff, even rainfall catchment to be pooled, stored, and redistributed as needed. But what they don't always highlight is how artistic they were. This one is engraved top to bottom. Vines etched along the outer rim. Birds mid-flight. Spirals dancing around every spout. You even spot a hidden little monkey face beneath a support beam. Someone had a sense of humor. Inside the reservoir, the water is perfectly still. It doesn't slosh or murmur. It waits. And that's when you hear the tapping. Light, rhythmic, like knuckles on a hollow door. A man steps out from behind the basin wall. He's old, barefoot, shirtless, holding a polished stick of bamboo like a tuning fork. He taps the side of the reservoir twice, then listens. Taps again, waits. You realize he's not fixing anything. He's communicating. Turns out these hubs weren't just about distributing water. They were also message centers. Each tap pattern had a meaning. One knock might mean send more to the west fields. Two knocks could be a warning pipe breach upstream. And a sustained tapping like a drum roll meant gathering. Someone had something to say. Historians still argue whether this was a formal code or more like musical improvisation, each community developing its own knock language over time. Either way, it worked. Sound carried far through the bamboo lines. And because the pipes were suspended or mounted on resonant structures, a single tap in one place could echo across an entire system. It's like Morse code. If Morse was barefoot and used irrigation tools. The quirky detail. One legend says a wedding proposal was once delivered entirely through bamboo taps. The bride's family heard a week of soft rhythms at dusk. When the final pattern ended with a long silence, they knew the groom's family had accepted. They met, brought wine, and celebrated beside the reservoir. No scrolls, no speeches, just rhythm. The old man notices you watching and waves you over. He lets you hold the stick. You hesitate, then tap. Knock, knock. A pause. Nothing. Then from far up the hill, a reply. Knock, knock, knock. Your skin tingles. The man grins. They say hello. You chuckle a little breathless. You've just spoken through a 1,000-year-old telephone line. Give or take. And that's when you notice the other part of the structure. Filters. Not high-tech, obviously, but clever. Before the water exits the basin, it passes through layers coarse sand, charred husk woven bamboo mesh, and chunks of crushed charcoal. Primitive water purification still practiced in parts of rural Vietnam today. It's not just ritual, it's hygiene. This water is being treated. No one's yelling about bacteria or heavy metals, but they know. They've always known. You realize that even the sacredness of water, the songs, the offerings, the rituals, has a very practical core. You honor what you depend on. You don't poison it. You listen to it, clean it, and share it. You sit beside the basin wall as the sun filters through the trees. Around you, the spouts gurgle and the occasional bird calls, but mostly, there's peace. A soft drip echoes from above as one of the incoming pipes delivers a slow, steady stream. Below, the outflows each take a turn. No rush, no shortage. Just balance. You ask the old man how long this hub has been here. He thinks. Shrugs. My great-grandfather said it was old when his great-grandfather was young. Right. So, just a casual few centuries then. He walks off humming a tune 3 notes over and over. You can't tell if it's a song or another message. Either way, you'll remember it. You take one last look at the bamboo basin. The knots. The taps. The water cupped like a thought in the center of a system too elegant to be accidental. And the pipes keep humming. By now, the pipe has become more than a presence. It's your compass. Your narrator, your subtle companion. You've seen it carry water and story balance temperature and tension signal crisis and carry wishes. But today, it's going to do something else entirely. It's going to disappear. You're moving into a flatter part of the valley now. Rice fields widen here, the land stretching out like a sleeping giant's palm. Birds flit low over the stalks, and the scent of ripe grain drifts on the air. But the bamboo pipeline you've been tracing? It's nowhere to be seen. You check the ground, nothing. You ask Tuan. He grins. You're walking on it. What? He stoops and brushes away some grass near a dirt path. Beneath you spot a buried length of bamboo just barely visible under a thin layer of packed earth. Its surface is scored and darkened not by fire but by time. A whisper of a pipe. They bury the pipes here, he says, to hide them from greedy eyes. Because here in the lowlands, the stakes are higher. The water isn't just feeding your family's terraces, it's feeding, the village granary. The crops here go to market. They're taxed, counted, watched. And that means sabotage is still a thing. Mainstream historians agree that in the delta regions of ancient and medieval Vietnam, water theft and irrigation manipulation were major concerns. In fact, there are recorded legal cases as far back as the 11th century where villagers were fined or publicly humiliated for rerouting pipes during the night to divert water to their own fields. Some families even trained children to sneak through the brush and listen for pipe leaks like little irrigation spies. So here pipes go underground. You follow Tuan as he moves carefully along what seems like an ordinary farm path, but every few meters he points to signs of slight depression in the soil. A soft crackling sound underfoot. A stone marker disguised as part of a fence post. All indicators of a buried bamboo pipeline alive and flowing just inches below. But it gets better. He brings you to a shaded area beside a palm grove where the soil has been cleared away to reveal a cross-section. Here you see a full subterranean network, pipes, joined like the limbs of a tree fanning out in different directions. Each joint is sealed tight with hardened sap and covered in dried banana leaf to keep insects out. This is Vietnam's ancient underground plumbing. And it's brilliant. One pipe doesn't just lead to one field. Instead, each line splits into 2 or 3. And the joints, they're cut at calculated angles to create IPA pressure forks. If one route gets blocked or overfilled, the excess is redirected automatically. Historians still argue whether these splits were built by mathematical design or trial and error learning. But here's the kicker. The flow calibration in some of these buried systems is so precise that modern hydrologists studying them have found natural flow equalization without any moving parts. Let that sink in. Ancient farmers with knives, string, and mud, creating self-correcting pipelines. The quirky local tidbit. In some regions, families named their underground pipes like pets. Not joking. You'll hear someone say, "Little Leech isn't drinking today," or "Tell Windrunner to send more water to the east plot." Names based on how the pipe behaves: slow, noisy, too clever, stubborn. Personality attributed to plumbing. You crouch beside one particularly old segment and press your hand to the soil. You can feel the faint vibration, the heartbeat of the water beneath. Alive. Tuan tells you that once a year, just before the dry season, the village holds a pipe feeding day. A ritual where offerings of rice fruit and incense are made over the hidden pipelines. Not for the gods necessarily, for the pipes. To say thank you, to ask them to keep running. One local myth says that if you forget to feed your pipe, it will wander, breaking itself slowly until the flow disappears and your fields dry. People laugh about it now, but no one forgets. You continue through the valley and notice something else this time, above ground. Baskets, hanging from fence posts, woven from rattan or bamboo filled with pebbles or seed husks. They swing in the breeze, and inside each is a little carved stick, positioned to tap lightly against the basket wall. It's a warning system. If a pipe breaks underground and water seeps up, the weight of the leak will shift the basket. The stick clinks. The farmer hears it and checks the ground. Low-tech leak detection. Still works better than plastic sensors, Tuan says with a shrug. As the day warms, you reach the edge of a large communal rice field. You see several farmers gathered at a shallow trench. They're digging not to plant, but to repair. One of the buried bamboo lines has collapsed. You join them and watch as they carefully uncover the segment. Sure enough, the pipe has split near a joint, likely from root pressure. But here's the amazing part. The replacement pipe is already cured. The ends are pre-shaped. The sap sealant is heated in a clay bowl nearby. Within 30 minutes, they've swapped the section, reset the soil, and like magic, the flow resumes. All done barefoot, half laughing, and elbow deep in mud. It feels more like a harvest dance than a plumbing job. You walk on with a fresh sense of respect for what lies beneath your feet. These pipes may be invisible, but they're never forgotten. The system lives, breathes, leaks, heals, and hums silent but essential. And tonight, when the valley goes dark and the frogs begin to sing, those hidden pipes will still carry the mountain's breath downhill in long, secret rivers you'll never see but will always feel. The buried pipes thin out behind you now and ahead. There it is again. Bamboo rising above ground, exposed and proud, stretching toward the horizon like a path laid out by giants with very practical taste in materials. You're near the river now. You can hear it before you see it, the low, constant murmur of wide, shallow water moving over stone. But the bamboo isn't just running to the river, it's running from it. This is the part that surprises most people. You expect irrigation to begin with rivers. Big, loud, obvious rivers. But in many ancient Vietnamese systems, rivers weren't the source. They were the receiver. And you're about to see why. Ahead, the bamboo pipeline arches out over a muddy bank and spills gently into the Red River's edge. It's not dumping excess water. It's returning it. Not all of it. Not even most. Just enough to maintain the water's motion to keep things flowing downstream to honor the cycle. You follow a footpath parallel to the pipeline and arrive at what looks like a wooden skeleton wrapped in vines. It's a structure tall, skeletal, with rotating paddles built into a vertical wheel. A Manus water-lifting device, ancient and elegant, powered by hand when needed, or by oxen walking a wide, grooved path. Mainstream fact. These are Vietnam's traditional Guong Nuoc, or water wheels used primarily in the lowland deltas and highland foothills to lift river water into irrigation channels. But in this case, the wheel isn't lifting the water into the pipe. It's helping regulate when and how much returns to the river. A reverse wheel. You watch as an older woman adjusts a series of small bamboo flaps tied with reeds and clay weights. Each flap controls the height of a paddle, shifting the balance of the wheel, adjusting the outflow. It's not digital. It's not exact. But it works. And here's the quirky twist. Local kids call this wheel Ba Gai, or Auntie Bamboo, because she squeaks like a scolding aunt when you push her too fast. You're not making this up. That's literally the village nickname. They tease their infrastructure. The sound, a rhythmic groan like a door protesting, just a little too much attention. And sure enough, the moment someone adds weight too fast, the wheel groans like it's deeply cosmically annoyed, and everyone laughs. Now let's talk about why this all matters. You're seeing water karma. That's what Tuan calls it. The idea that taking without giving breaks the balance not just physically but spiritually. This bamboo pipe doesn't hoard water. It borrows. And when the work is done, when the rice is full and the ponds are brimming, it gives some of it back. Historians still argue whether this belief was purely symbolic or had real ecological effects. But satellite studies of older Vietnamese agricultural zones show remarkably stable water tables compared to neighboring regions. Coincidence, maybe? Or maybe centuries of respectful return flows helped more than anyone realized. You kneel beside the outflow point and dip your hand in. The water is warmer than the river. Slightly silty, but still clear. And just behind you, the bamboo line is fitted with one last clever piece of engineering. A trap. A hand-woven net positioned at the mouth of the final pipe. Inside, bits of sediment leaves the occasional curious frog. But this isn't just to catch debris. It's to steal and read us the health of the whole system. Tuan picks up a basket from nearby and dumps out a small pile of particles caught earlier that day. Darker clay means excess erosion up in the high fields. Too many insects could mean an upstream leak is growing. A healthy trap has a little of everything, but not too much of anything. It's like looking at the pipe's blood test. You ask if they write it down, monitor it somehow. No, Tuan says. We taste the difference, feel it. Of course. You stand and look downriver. The bamboo line has ended, but its legacy continues in the ripples. You spot water buffalo standing midstream, children throwing nets, a fisherman dozing under a palm frond hat lined slack, and you realize this whole system from mountaintop to river's edge isn't just engineering. It's choreography. Each piece pipe wheel joint, jointless bend, squeaky anti-bamboo plays its part. Not for profit. Not even always for survival, but for balance. A principle so central that it guided architecture, agriculture, even relationships. The mainstream records mention Confucian influence in Vietnamese planning and harmony. But here in the countryside, you sense something older, less academic, more intuitive. The river accepts the water like a parent accepting a child's allowance. Not greedy, just touch that they remembered. And for a moment, you wonder what your own plumbing would say if it could hum. Probably something about how much you overuse the hot water. You smile, then turn back toward the hills. The river sings below, the pipe sleeps above. But the water never stops moving. Evening creeps back over the valley and the air thickens with that rich scent of damp soil, distant firewood, and jasmine in bloom. The bamboo pipeline has quieted now, not stopped. Never stopped, but slowed. Like a lullaby near its final verse. You're moving uphill again, tracing a different arm of the system. This path leads not to fields or rivers, but to people and clusters of homes built from timber and thatch, nestled together beneath the arms of banyan trees. It's quiet, but not sleepy. You hear voices, laughter, the clatter of bowls, village life. And overhead slung between homes like giant wind chimes, the bamboo pipes. Here the water flows into living spaces. Not just for cooking or bathing, for listening. Yes, listening. Tuan leads you up a rickety stair into the loft of a longhouse. It smells of dried herbs and sweet smoke. The walls creak gently in the wind, and hanging from the rafters is a short horizontal bamboo pipe, open at both ends with a thin stream of water running through it. At first it seems like nothing. Then he points. There's a notch cut into the bottom of the pipe, angled like a musical mouth. Water trickles through it, landing on a flat stone below. Talk. 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 It's a water clock, used not to measure minutes, but to mark mood. Mainstream histories of ancient Vietnam often reference water clocks used in court ceremonies or calendar rituals. But these are more personal. Homespun. Every household here once had their own, tuned by ear, adjusted with bits of stone or leaf. The rhythm told you everything. Fast and loud high flow season. Time to store rice. Slow and soft. Dry months approaching. Ration the fish sauce. No sound at all. You've got a problem upstream. Time to check the joints. In this way, sound became schedule. The quirky local term for it, nuak ri ra, which literally means leaky water, but people say it like a term of endearment. Old women call their husbands that when they get too chatty. You're noisier than my water pipe today. You laugh when you hear it used in real time. A teenager slams the door below and his grandmother yells it through a grin. You pass through another home where the water pipe feeds directly into the kitchen basin. The bamboo there is polished smooth from decades of use. A ladle hangs on a peg beside it. No faucet, no knob, just a gentle stream from the hills. And on the wall a series of blackened lines. A family water diary. Each mark made during times of shortage. A reminder not of suffering but of endurance. We drank from the hills that year, one note reads. We shared with the goats and the goats didn't mind. There's something so human in the way water weaves through these homes. Not just as a utility, but as an emotion. Babies are washed in it. Lovers whisper by it. Elders soak their tired feet in it while telling stories so old even they can't remember how they end. Tuan leads you into a home where an elderly woman sits beside a clay pot. She dips her hand into the cool water, swirls it slowly, and listens. She says it's too cold, he translates. The water's coming too fast from the shaded pipes. Someone needs to add more sun. You blink. You can adjust that. He nods. We twist the bamboo joints to redirect part of the flow through warmer channels. It's like seasoning the water. Seasoning the water! Historians still argue whether temperature control was truly intentional or just a happy accident of varied pipe paths. But here they make no such distinctions. Intuition counts just as much as design. If the water feels wrong, they change its path. Simple. Another house has a bamboo line fitted with a gourd-shaped bulge. It makes the water gurgle as it passes low, burbling like a cat purring from another room. Children love it. They say it keeps bad dreams away. You can't help but press your ear to it. Gloop, gloop, it works. And here's the final surprise of the evening. As you pass the edge of the village, a row of bamboo stands upright, not for water, but for music. Each stalk has been tuned by careful carving set at a slight angle and positioned so that droplets from overhead leaves fall onto them with perfect rhythm. It's a rain orchestra. When it storms, the village sings. No one planned this system to be poetic. And yet every joint, every drip, every echo tells a story, marks a season, or hums a lullaby. You sit on a small wooden bench watching the sun fall behind the trees. The light catches the water at just the right angle, and for a moment the bamboo pipes glow like veins of gold strung through the fabric of the village. This is water not just as survival, but as culture. As company. You understand now. These aren't just tools. They're instruments. And tonight, as the stars begin to prick the sky and someone begins to hum a song without words beside their stove, the pipes will join in softly, gently, the ancient lullaby of flowing water, threading through rooftops and dreams. The village fades behind you, now swallowed by twilight. The bamboo pipeline leads you into darker hills, quieter ones where the crickets start to compete with the frogs, and even the trees seem to lean in curious. You follow it with practiced steps over roots under branches along a narrow path that feels like it hasn't been walked in weeks. And then you hear something strange. Not the hum, not the drip, something else. A wind. Not through the leaves, but through the pipe itself. A soft, hollow exhale like the world whispering secrets it doesn't want to say out loud. Tuan is ahead of you now, crouched beside a section of exposed bamboo. It's been split lengthwise and widened with cross braces, turning it into a yuel. Open flume. No longer a pipe, but a half pipe, more like a trough. Water still flows inside it, just more shallowly, more exposed to the elements. You ask why. Because the dead don't like closed spaces, he says, not even pretending to joke. You've arrived at a funerary path. Historians rarely write about this part. It's too local, too subtle, too uncomfortable. But here in some regions of Vietnam, especially in highland minority communities like the Hmong and the Dao bamboo water channels, were used to guide the spirits onward of the departed back to the hills. The pipe becomes a road, and the water a vehicle. The flow you're following doesn't feed any crops. It doesn't loop into a house or a shrine. It runs gently, continuously along a long looping path that leads to a stone cairn, surrounded by ancient moss-covered markers. Graves, but not in rows, more like clusters, family constellations. Each one has its own pipe segment ending just beside it. Some are dry, some still gurgle softly. One flows into a ceramic bowl filled with rainwater flowers and a bit of burned ash. You realize what you're looking at the Nyap bamboo memory line. It's not about irrigation anymore. It's not even about engineering. It's about presence. About keeping the dead connected to the same water their descendants still drink. One quirky practice families used to pour tiny scoops of rice wine into their house pipe on the new moon. A small splash would travel downhill through the entire system, ending here at the graveyard where it would emerge diluted but fragrant. A symbolic toast. You kneel beside one pipe and press your palm to it. It's barely warm, slower than any of the others, but it flows. The idea Tuan explains is that as long as the water keeps moving, the soul stays close. If the pipe runs dry, it's time to let them go. Historians still argue whether this ritual was ever meant literally, whether people truly believed spirits rode the water, or if the flow was just metaphor. But you can see how much it still matters. Some families rebuild the funerary line every year. Others leave offerings beside the bamboo carefully placed so they won't block the stream. You pass a cairn where a child's toy floats in a shallow pool. A carved bird, crudely made. It bobs gently with the current. You don't ask questions. And then just when you think it couldn't get more poignant, you hear music. Not from a speaker, not from a flute, from the pipe itself. This one has been carved with tiny reeds, mini flute-like slits set into the sides. As the water rushes past, it creates faint, high-pitched notes. Not quite a melody, not quite a whistle. Somewhere in between. It's a ghost flute. A soft song for the departed, played by water, tuned by grief. You walk slowly now, respectfully. Each footstep muted in the soft earth. Each segment of pipe hums with a different tone. Some hollow, some resonant. One has been lined with smooth shells, creating a watery rattle as the current moves through. You ask Tuan how long this has existed. He shrugs. Before there were villages, when the forest was still louder than people? You believe him, because this isn't something humans invent. It's something we remember. And as you stand before one final pipe short dry, cracked down the middle, you feel something shift. A breeze, maybe. A change in the hum. The sense that a soul has taken its last ride and now the pipe rests. You place a pebble in the bowl, not because you're told to, because it feels right. And far, far below, back in the valley, the bamboo still flows, feeding crops, lifting songs, telling jokes, and yes, carrying memories like the soft weight of water in your hands. This pipeline doesn't end here. It simply slows and lets the rest of the world carry on. The night deepens as you descend the moon, rising behind a veil of clouds that drift like steam across the blackening sky. The bamboo is barely visible now, except in the glint of moonlight, or the gleam of lanterns swinging lazily from the porches of homes far below. You've reached the final stretch of the pipeline, a long, winding descent that feels both familiar and utterly new. It hums still, but more faintly now. Like a lullaby that's run out of lyrics but keeps singing anyway. You pass one last water gate, just a slanted panel of split bamboo, and two pegs carefully positioned. This gate doesn't direct water toward fields or homes. It guides it towards something quieter. A pond, still mirror flat tucked beneath the ridge like a secret. And feeding it, the bamboo pipeline ends not in a splash, but in a gentle pour. A steady, uninterrupted stream that glides off the final spout and fans out across the water's surface like silk unraveling. This is the community reflection pond. A rare feature not because it's expensive or difficult to build, but because only certain villages ever agreed to share stillness. Tuan sits beside you at the water's edge. The bamboo is silent now. The frogs are not. One lets out a honk that sounds like a rubber boot getting pulled from deep mud. You both laugh, the sound quickly swallowed by the night. The pond's mostly for thinking, he says, but also for cooling off after bad decisions. You smile, not asking for examples. This pond, like the bamboo that feeds it, is unspoken infrastructure. The kind that shows up not on blueprints, but in behavior. A shared space made sacred not by ceremony, but by custom. Mainstream historians touch only briefly on places like these quiet, communal features, built not for productivity, but for presence. They call them liminal spaces, transitional zones, social buffers. But here the pond isn't a buffer. It's a mirror. You lean closer, watching your reflection blur and settle. Behind it, the bamboo pipe spills water with the calm of a heart that's seen too much and still kept beating. Nearby, someone has left a bundle of herbs tied with string. Mugwort, basil, a floating offering to whatever spirit is listening. You see another bundle further down, half sunk in the string, unraveling. This one had purpose once. It still does, you figure, even if it's forgotten. A child appears barefoot and sleepy-eyed and dips a ladle into the pond. She sips. Not much, just enough to feel connected. You ask Tuan what happens if the bamboo breaks here, if the line falters before the water reaches the pond. He shrugs. Then someone fixes it. Doesn't matter who, just whoever hears first. The answer is so simple it's perfect. The quirky local saying, water finds the ears before the eyes. Meaning the pipe doesn't just carry sound, it requires listeners. The health of the system relies on shared attention, not assigned roles. If it hums wrong, someone notices. If it leaks, someone bends down. It's not ownership, it's belonging. And you begin to understand this isn't just irrigation. It's intimacy. A closeness between people and tools, between land and logic, between the living and what flows beneath them. The bamboo pipeline of ancient Vietnam wasn't just an engineering feat, it was a social contract. Flexible, musical, whispering. Historians still argue whether this system was ever centralized, whether a king or court ever imposed regulations on these water paths. There are records of regional lords trying, setting quotas, counting buckets. But the pipes themselves, they don't obey orders, they obey gravity and community. You rise slowly. The night is cool now. The moon's reflection in the pond trembles slightly as a fish breaks the surface and vanishes again. You glance back at the bamboo pipeline one last time. Not a monument, not a marvel, just there. Doing what it's always done. Carrying memory. Sustaining life. Silently connecting strangers through water and time. And in the quietest of moments, you almost think you can hear it whisper. Drink gently and leave something behind. you.